Hi, folks. I'm Vedant, and since the past month or so, today's 1st or 2nd October, I'm not sure what the date is, but since the past month or so, I've been obsessed about certain topics, and one of them is understanding the traits that constitute or are sort of early indicators of success or early indicators of how successful a person can be. For example, an early indicator of success might be getting into a good college. That is one of the indicators. And I have sort of narrowed it down to certain traits which I think are crucial to detect talent early on in their life. And I'll tell you why this is important. This is important because if you know the formula, if you know the building blocks of a particular product, then you are able to replicate it, you're able to reverse engineer it, and you're able to utilize it for yourself. And that is why I am very fascinated by these topics, especially topics like these, which help me understand the psyche, which help me understand the nuances behind something. For example, one of the other topics which I've been very fascinated by is how and why we find certain people desirable. For example, what constitutes to considering a person as good looking. That is one topic which I've been researching about for quite a while. I've not come to a definitive conclusion yet there, so there is no video for it right now. But I have some pointers of of certain traits which are early indicators of success in entrepreneurs. Some of these traits are industry agnostic, they are discipline agnostic, as in they are applicable to everywhere. Whether you're an actor, whether you're a musician, whether you're a whatever, scientist, right? Certain traits are applicable everywhere, but certain traits are majorly just reserved for people who are interested in entrepreneurship. And I define success in three stages. This video will not cover that, but I define success in three stages. First stage is between 0 to 18 years of age, then 18 to 25 years of age, and then 25 plus. 0 to 18 is majorly characterized and revolves around one thing. That is the access to capital that your parents have, or you have rather, the access to capital that you have or your parents have, the upbringing you've been provided, the environment you surround yourself with, and lastly, whether you are able to cling on to a passion or not. This video will not elaborate on that, but in my opinion, success is divided into these three tiers, these three stages, and each stage has certain traits which are the most effective, the most valuable to have to succeed in that particular age group. So now I have certain notes written. I prepared them while I was in college क्योंकि पढ़ाई तो यार कुछ ज़्यादा सीख नहीं रहा था मैं. So I thought I'll just note down some of my thoughts because I'm very fascinated about research. I'm very fascinated about learning new things and discovering what makes people tick, what makes people truly function. Like, I don't know, that sounds very pseudo intellectual, but still, I'll just point out some of the observations I've had. This is not a complete tier list. Yes, I've made a tier list. I I love tier lists, but I've put some pointers here which I think are very important, and this is not divided by age group yet. I will make a video where I will share my findings of traits divided by age group, but this is not that video. But starting with the S tier, the first trait which I think is really valuable to be a young, successful entrepreneur is the background you come from, the kind of connections your parents have, the kind of school you go to plays a very big factor in achieving early success. Not success in totality, but early success. That is the 0 to 18 wala majorly age group and 18 to 25 age group. यहाँ पे if you want to be successful under the age of 25, your parents define that for you. Your upbringing defines that for you. No, this is not an excuse. This is genuinely just me and what my observations have been so far. If your parents are rich, if you have the connections, if you go to a good school, for example, you are bound to get certain opportunities which other people will not. And these are the opportunities which define early success. And I have no hard feelings with people who come from privileged background. In fact, I would love to befriend them. But this is one factor, financial background and upbringing. If you look at, for example, Zepto brothers, if you look at a person like Vedant from Manyavar, same name, Vedant, but I'm not as rich as him. All of these, Vedanta is just one example, and Zepto Brothers are also just one example. Folks in this bracket from that economic strata have access to technology, have access to certain things which the general public do not. For example, one common denominator that I've noticed with the likes of Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk is that they had access to technology, commercial technology, which others did not. They had access to computers very early in their life. They had access to machines very early in their life, which people like us, people coming from middle class backgrounds, people coming from upper middle class backgrounds, may not. I am very privileged to have been gifted a computer, proper computer by my parents. I assembled it myself. But that got me interested, and that sort of helped me understand the nuances of technology and how little most people really know about it. Most people restrict their understanding of technology and their interaction with technology by just their phones. Like their phone is their life, and that is very miserable. Their laptop is their life, and that is very sad to see. The world of technology actually enables you to think beyond. It sort of opens up your horizons, broadens your horizons out, rather. Right. So financial background and upbringing are one of the most important traits for success because you have the hell lot of time to tinker around in this age, which you may not have when you are in your 20s, because that is when the pressure of job, internships, and so on and so forth come in. So if you have so much free time, if you have these connections, the kind of people you meet when you go to schools, like let's say I won't take names of schools, but when you belong to certain schools, you have people from a similar socioeconomic background living with you, not living with you, studying with you, and you have access to their network as well. And this is the cream of the crop wala network, like tier one, se bhi tier one network. And this network will always, 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 always be helpful. And of course, going to a good school will enable you to go to a good college, because if you do not go to a prep school, or if you do not go to a IB school, IB, I don't know why I did the air quotes, but if you don't go to a good school which preps you for, let's say, foreign admissions, or which preps you for Indian admission ko itna hai nahi, but when which preps you for foreign admissions, it's highly likely that you will not be able to get a good college. And by good college I mean IVs. That is my definition of good. That is one thing. Financial background and upbringing, that is the most important factor, S tier factor. The other factor is passion plus early discovery plus sustained focus on passion. Let us break it down. Passion, it's very obvious. Early discovery of passion. What I mean to say is that if you're interested in acting, my philosophy in life is that passion can be inculcated in a very early age. Passion with regards to anything, for example, public speaking. If you have had exposure to good public speaking opportunities in your childhood and you're encouraged, for example, let's say a 7-year-old starts public speaking, 13-year-old starts public speaking, and gets appreciation for it early on in their life before most of their peers, they will take it with stride, and they will start focusing on it and will double down on it. So by the time they reach people, by the time they reach a stage when others sort of compete with them, they've already excelled because they have so many years in front of them, right? Which they have practiced and honed their craft. For example, I was encouraged early on in my life to pursue public speaking. Not pursue, of course, say class and assemblies hoti and so on and so forth. I got a lot of opportunities when I was younger. And जब आप younger होते हो, तो even if you perform very shittily, if you do a mediocre job, you will get praise. And of course, you're a child. You don't know whether you've done a good job or not. So you will take that praise with pride, and you will start chasing that high, because getting praise, being appreciated is a high, right? So you will start chasing that high, and in the process of chasing that high, you will start to hone your craft. In this case, in this example, it is public speaking. So from fourth grade onwards, I started honing my public speaking. I started taking every opportunity that came my way. So by the time I got to 10th grade, where others also wanted to do public speaking, I already had so much experience. I was also confident about myself, and the experience part obviously helped. So I performed much better than other folks. I was more confident than other folks at that stage of life, which then propelled me to pursue this further, take this further, and develop the skill further and sort of capitalize on it. So, early encouragement in life regarding whatever passion you have is a really, really, really crucial element, which I think private schools, these IB schools, these progressive schools do really well, which orthodox traditional schools might sort of lack behind because they cannot pay individual focus to every student because the paying capacity, the ticket value of every student is not as high as other schools. Therefore, the student teacher ratio is lesser, or rather is more. Sorry, my bad, is more students, less teachers, right? But that does not correlate with my point. It sort of correlates, but not directly. What I meant is that passion, whatever passion be it cricket, if you start pursuing this, if you are an early adopter, or rather, if you discover it earlier in your life, let's say when you were 3, when you were 4, when you were 5 years old, and you sustain the passion, as in most people, when they get started with an activity, they sort of get dissuaded because yaar, अच्छे से नहीं हो पा रहा, it's blah, whatever reasons, right? But if you discover a passion, let's say cricket, at the age of 3, and you continue honing that craft, if you continue focusing on that particular passion, till the time you're 18, you will be a world-class cricketer. For example, I was watching the interview of Yuvraj Singh's father. There's a very fantastic interview. Mr. Yogaraj, Sandesh Bhatia from Unfiltered had done a very fantastic podcast or an interview with Mr. Yogaraj. And वहाँ पे he mentioned that he got his child started with cricket very early on. Like जैसे ही वो पैदा हुआ था उसी टाइम पे उन्होंने start कर दिया था, and he sort of imposed his dream on his child. That is a different story altogether, whether that's actually good or not. But early discovery to hui na. Whether the child chose it willingly or not, he started pursuing that passion from a very, very early age. And the best part is that the story does not end there. You may discover your passion early on in your life, but you need to sustain it. For example, if Mr. Yuvraj would have stopped playing cricket by the age of 9 and would not have continued further, then he would not be the person he had become or he is today. But because of the early discovery, plus sustained focus on the passion, he became a world class cricketer. And of course, his father had a very big role to play because his father himself was part of the Indian cricket team, right? But that is one example. Now, this is where the tricky part comes in, that how do you discover your passion, or how do you know whether it is your dream and not your parents? That is an ethical minefield, or whether parents should impose their dreams on their child in the name of passion, or lay the seeds of a dream which the child develops later on in their life. For example, my parents were doctors. They could have forced me to become a doctor as well by shoving their dreams in my face. Thankfully, that did not happen, but that is usually how it goes. Parents impose their dreams on their child. So that is one point. To reiterate though, financial background and upbringing is the most crucial element. The other is passion, an early discovery of passion, and sustained focus on your passion. That is one thing. The other is narcissism. I believe that narcissism and to an extent overconfidence are very important. Of course, overconfidence is a double-edged sword, but narcissism is, I think, very important because when you're narcissistic, the world revolves around you. You are the main character in your story. And if you do not believe that you're the main character in your story, then who the fuck is the main character in your story? Why the fuck are you just a side character, right? So you should truly believe that you are something exceptional. You should have the conviction to know that you are not just some random Joe. You are someone who has a shit ton of potential. And that narcissism is, I think, extremely crucial. And overconfidence, to a certain extent, does play a very good part, a very big part in the same. Now coming on to one other factor in the S tier. By the way, the S tier is applicable everywhere, be it it's discipline agnostic. It does not restrict itself to one discipline, be it entrepreneurship, be it acting, right? The other factor is risk appetite. I think that the most successful people have a huge risk appetite. Maybe because they come from secure back. Most successful people, in my opinion, be it if you look at acting, look at Farhan Akhtar, Zoya Akhtar. If you look at, let's say, Saif Ali Khan, if you look at whom else? A lot of names there. Alia, for example, Abhishek, for example. A lot of names. Every famous actor whom we appreciate now to be and recognize to be very talented actors came into the industry through this, through nepotism only, and that is fine. I do not hold it against them, right? But because of that privileged background, they had a huge risk appetite. By that I mean they could afford to, drop out of formal education and sort of escape the rat race and not, they could afford to take the risk of not earning money for quite a lot of years because they had that background. Although that is sort of irrelevant to this factor as a standalone factor, but I believe that risk appetite is very important because I heard this quote once that the riskiest thing you can do is not take any risks. Of course, of course, the risks have to be calculated. You should know that what you're getting into. For example, if I drop out of college tomorrow, I know what I'm in for. I know कि अगर मैंने पैसे नहीं कमाए किसी और तरीके से, तो I'm fucked. I know that. I'm not that delusional, right? But I think risk appetite is an important factor. Now coming on to the 8 year factors, and that is, I'm not really sure about these factors, but under say, I think that they do play a big part. First is non-conformism. Very self-explanatory that you do not conform to the society, you do not conform to what others tell you to do. You sort of stand out, you have your own personality, you have your own independent way of thinking, your own viewpoints, and you do not try to have a homogenized thought process, belief system, moral system, whatever. Other is confidence, although confidence we sort of covered earlier. And the last one in the 8 year is college. I believe that for successful entrepreneurs, young successful, not successful entrepreneurs in totality, but young, emphasis on young. For young successful entrepreneurs, the kind of college you go to has a very big factor, a very big part to play. And because the thing is that when you go to an IIT, छोड़ो, when you go to an Ivy, you have access to that kind of network, you have access to that credentials, that credibility, and you just I don't know, I'm not able to articulate my thoughts well, but I think college plays a very big factor for early success because the kind of college you end up going to also show is an indicator of you as a person. If you are an overachiever, you will go to a good college. If you are a mediocre student, high chance, high likelihood that you will go to a shitty college. And if you are a mediocre person, then high chance you will not do well in life. For example, let us talk about Delhi University. If you're from a college like Hindu, if you're from a college like SRCC or Stephens, right? There's a high chance that you will do better in life than people from, let's say, Shamlal. Not to discriminate. If you're from an IIT, it's highly likely that you will do much better than most people because आप उस मुकाम तक मुकाम हाँ उस मुकाम उस मुकाम तक आप पहुंच मौकम I don't know this fucking you've reached that place, that milestone, right? You've proven your mettle, you've proven your merit. The college is also an early indicator of success. The last characteristic which I have sort of highlighted in my research is being a misfit. This is not applicable everywhere. That is why I'm very so-so about it. Like, I'm not sure whether this is a good pointer or not. But I think being a misfit plays a big factor because when you are insecure about yourself, when you are a misfit, then you need to prove something because if you are very secure about yourself, you don't need to prove anything. Like, why do you don't even want to, prove to someone else. But if you are a misfit, if you're insecure about, let's say, your looks, then you will try harder in that regard. If you're insecure about the amount of money you make, then you will strive to make more money. But I understand that there are counter arguments to this particular pointer. so I'm not hampering down on it. But I think that being a misfit, by the way, my hair is sort of ruined. It was raining today, and I had gone out with someone. Um, mm, yeah. So I was saying that being a misfit, I think that helps. And this sort of concludes the characteristics of young, successful entrepreneurs, which I have observed. But of course, I'm sure that there are many, many other pointers which we can add. For example, a debate can be had that more extroverted people are successful than introverted people, or vice versa. I have not reached that stage of my observation where I can give a concluding argument or I can support either side. But I will continue my research. I will try to document it online as well, in the hopes that someday someone finds some value in the content I produce. And I do not produce this content to get some monetary benefit out of it. That is the least of my concerns. I do not give a fuck about money. I care about growth more than money. Money does not matter to me. I'm being very honest. I couldn't give a shit about money. But what does matter to me is that I create impact. I have one fear in life. My greatest fear is that I'll end up being mediocre. And I cannot afford to be mediocre. That is not a luxury I can have. I cannot afford to be lazy, to be forgotten. Right. But enough about me. I am a very narcissistic person, but yeah, that's pretty much it about me. And I hope that this video provided some value. It did some value addition to your life. And if you have other traits which you guys have observed that help in shaping the ideal personality, in shaping the ideal persona of a young successful entrepreneur, please let me know. I would love to incorporate that trait by hook or crook in my life as well, because I want to be successful. Right. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching this video. And yeah, bye bye. Good night. Ciao.